This whole world is just stealing innocence at a rapid pace. And so it's like, well, what is the answer? Besides just helping people win, helping them grow and succeed, I think that you're doing something even more powerful than that, is you're actually somehow fighting evil.
I was so tired, Eric, of people just being like, oh yeah, stuff happened when I was young, and just kind of like mulling over it. If we don't deal with it, if we don't face it head on, it's going to manifest in our body. It's going to repeat itself some way, somehow, in a different form. I'm going through like, what happened to you before the age of 18 and what haven't you dealt with, really walking them through what generational transference looks like and how it shows up. If you don't want to repeat this on your kids or other kids, you do need to learn how to forgive, and you do need to get real help.
That's powerful. But I think the answer, again, is for good people to step up to the plate and teach them how to win, how to use this to achieve your dreams and to have a full life.
Make it cool to talk about these things, because I felt so much shame for things that I didn't do to myself when I was little. I spent 30 years recovering from stuff I had no control over. People are just talking about behavioral change. They're not talking about identity change.
Just for people that don't know, so we have Emily Ford on Man on a Mission Day, Woman on a Mission today. And Emily's someone that I've always looked up to since the second I found her. Emily's a 9-figure human that started her career on a mattress on a floor. And what I love about your story, Emily, is I would argue when I started winning in life, my actual start was on a blow-up mattress that I lived on in an upstairs office of my first furniture store for a year with my new wife. I just got married. And
Wow.
when I read that
So we
about
were
you,
both on mattresses on the floor.
yep, I had a Walmart blow-up mattress. And when I read that about you, I just smiled because like I hated my mattress when I got my start in entrepreneurship. But that was how I started. We rented a store out for free. We had 2 free months of building off of a freeway. And I had no money. We sold our car, and we lived in an upstairs office in our first store for a whole year on a blow-up mattress with 3 dogs. So in a tiny little office.
Wow.
So
How many years ago was
that
that?
was in 2011. So how many years ago was that now? 13 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah, mine was in 2010.
A lot can happen in 14 years, Emily.
Right?
We'll start there then. So what was your start? What was your sort of start? Usually we kind of actually start with rock bottom if you had one. Some of the best missions in life I find start with some of these really profound false starts in life.
Oh, 100%. And it's like when you're in the heat of it, or when you're on the floor, right? It's like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And nothing makes sense. But then when you look back, you're like, oh, it all makes sense. God, I get it now. But for me, I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, raised by a single mom, youngest of 3 kids, crazy, turbulent upbringing. I basically raised myself half the time. My dad left when I was born. My mom had a guy live with us that beat the crap out of her like every other day. And so, I always say like there was an angel watching over me, because I ended up being such a good kid. Like I played junior Olympic volleyball. I was class president. I went to Bible camp, all the things. And I just didn't know, like, what do I want to do with my life? And I remember saying to my mom, like, it doesn't really make sense to go to college. I don't know what I would go for. So I ended up working for a plastic surgeon when I was 19, rehabbing major weight loss patients, nannied 4 boys on the side. And then I got started with competing in Fitness America. Like Fitness USA, Fitness America, because I was so bored and I needed competition and I needed something that, would keep me busy, because all my friends were in college. And so that's when I started to hang out with women that were older than me, because we all like practiced our posing together, and we all would like go to Vegas to compete together and stuff. And that's what led me into selling supplements and becoming an entrepreneur. So during that time period, I was in a horrible relationship. left it all behind, started my network marketing health and wellness company, moved in with my mentor, slept on a mattress on the floor, unplugged the TV, and I said, I am going to be a millionaire and I don't care how long it takes me. Let's do it. And I didn't buy like new things, nothing for, gosh, like a few years even.
Yeah. Amazing. We have so many similarities, bizarrely, in our start. I had a single mom, too. I came in a sort of a tumultuous start in life, but yeah, so many connections there. I always wonder, like, so many people I admire, when you get under the hood a little bit, you really see what makes them tick, where the fire probably was likely lit as a young person. And I would argue there's still a little girl inside you, still a little boy inside me that's like really driving a lot of the decisions and the desires that we have. But yeah, you went past that really quickly. But do you think that a lot of sort of the courage, and so many people look at you and they see all these attributes of what they want their lives to be like? I think so much of that sort of stems from your childhood. I don't know if you can sit in that emotion for a moment, or unpack that, but I just think there's so much power in sort of like where you come from.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel so fortunate that I'm on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it is my obligation, like I owe it to God to pull other people out. And honestly, that is what drives me because I'm like, I am so blessed to have healed and continuing to heal that, what am I going to do? Like why I found healing, like just sit here and keep it all to myself. Like I want other people to experience the freedom that I have so we can really truly break generational transference at the end of the day.
Yeah. Were you the one in your family, the one that sort of broke that generational, I guess you could call it, curse?
Yes and no, because my siblings as well, like they're so different than me. They went like the traditional route. I'm like the unicorn girl in the head in the clouds kind of one for sure. So in that, right, like by doing different things and being an entrepreneur, totally. But my brother like serves our country or
Oh,
many wars and flies C-130s and he is a lieutenant and my sister is a teacher.
amazing.
But I'm still different. But
Sure.
yeah, we were all like guided.
And your mom now?
My mom now is happily married to a guy that he's actually a detective for the state of Minnesota. Like
Wow,
our whole family changed, which is
amazing.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool to kind of see where you guys all ended up. That, I mean, there was a happy ending for everyone in your family. It's powerful. It doesn't
Yeah.
always end that way, but I'm getting a better
No.
sense of you now of what makes you tick and really what drives you. I think what drives most people that I'm inspired by myself is the exact same thing you just tapped into, is they have this servant heart, and that's what makes them feel like their life has meaning, is the more they serve. That's exactly the same for myself, and that is the types of people that I want to be near personally. So did you always know this? I mean, from that blow up mattress moment, did you kind of have a clear vision for where your life was going to go?
No. The thing is it's like sometimes you just need one person to believe in you, right?
I agree.
And I was
Yeah.
in an apartment living with a woman who was 10 years older than me. She was my mentor.
Hmm.
And it was right after the market crashed in 2010. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, everybody got laid off. And you might know Chris and Lori Harder,
Mm-hmm. I do.
but they were my business partners and they lived down the street.
Oh,
And
cool.
so, the girl I lived with used to work with Chris Harder in mortgage banking. And what happened was she was mentoring me and I overheard her on a phone call. And he was like, why are you working with this 23-year-old blonde fitness
Sure.
chick? Like, almost like you're wasting your time. And I heard her say this, Eric. I heard her say, she has influence.
Mm.
And I was like, I do?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even really understand what that fully meant. But I understood that I can lead people in some capacity. And so I just took that one little belief and I chose to just ride it and step into it. And that ended up looking like leading in sales and leading sales teams and things like that. But now, gosh, just through never arriving and never settling, I'm like, wow, God, you really did a lot on me and continue to. And just when you think like, oh, I got it figured out, he like reveals a whole new thing to you. And it's just because I have a curious mind and I truly believe that I'm just getting started.
Yeah, it's funny. That's so common in people that are achievers is they always feel that way. I don't know. I've heard you say this recently that you talked about big life, big energy, big message. That's exactly what I feel like when I'm around you. You are all those things. Did you always have that? So kind of connecting some of these dots, was that something that you cultivated, that you grew, or did you always have big energy? I would argue that energy is probably one of the greatest currencies in the world alongside influence itself. But is that something that you always had? What are some of the natural gifts that were always instilled in you?
Yeah, definitely the gift of leadership.
Mm,
Like I would
wow.
dominate any phy ed class and, play some flag football. I like ripped off a guy's pants one time. um, but I always wanted to lead. I don't even know where that came from. I think it's just a natural gift for sure.
Yeah,
But it wasn't until I got into sales where I started to read like John Gordon's book, like The Energy Bus
sure.
and that kind of thing, because I grew up in a home that was naturally pessimistic. Like it was naturally a doom cloud. It was naturally gossiping about the neighbors and,
Totally.
money doesn't grow on trees and all that stuff. So the minute I realized like I can consciously create my thoughts and my world and all that, that's when things skyrocketed for me. And I really started to like take note and how to raise my frequency and all the things that come into play with that. And so it's a combination of things, but I would say naturally, I'm just a fighter and I want to win.
Yeah.
And I know that from a crappy state, you can't win. So if you want to do great things, you got to change your state. So I really believe like over a decade ago, learning to change my state has really helped me day to day to continue to have those micro wins.
Yeah, amazing. So you said a bunch of good things there. Number one, getting out of the environment of sort of the pessimistic setup of, I think most people's families in the world seem to
Yeah.
sort of have this, I hate to call it a toxic environment, but they just are in many cases. There was a stat that I stumbled upon that I think it's pretty telling about America, but it says more than just the stat would suggest. But it says that at the age of 65, only 2% of Americans would say they're financially secure at the age of 65. And I think that's a shout out to sort of the reality of how most households operate. Even though that's a far out statistics at retirement, it really shows the mindset that most people carry with them their whole life. This idea of scarcity, I would argue, is the reason you're not living an abundant life at 65. And that comes from sort of a pessimistic setup. So you getting in a new environment, you said something I love too, and I agree with this. Sometimes it just takes one person to see something in you to change your life. I always say this even in my story, when the right person asks the right question at the right time, it'll change your life. And that's what Ed Milet did for me. I was already winning at really high levels. He's the thing I think that asked the right question at the right time that made me really look at my life at death almost and say, what am I doing with my life? Is my life gonna matter at all? Because it was fear that I was running from. I was so geared to win because of fear, which is one of my greatest assets, I would argue. It's so sort of counterintuitive to how most people think winning looks. But that was my story. And so kind of looking at all these key pieces, Ed was where I found a person that really opened my mind to what real living is actually supposed to be about, what real purpose is, what real mission is. And that's what I see in you. Almost all your content about brand is really sort of geared all around this. And I always love to hear where the sort of the seeds of inspiration were started and then how they were actually cultivated. But you said one person was doing that. Was that, I might have missed this. Was this Lori?
No, but she was significant as well. She's the one that got me into like clean eating and working out and all
Okay.
the things. But no, her name was Holly.
Holly. Okay.
Lori was Holly's personal trainer.
Gotcha. Okay, so Holly. So we're gonna have a huge shout out to Holly here. So
Yeah.
what did Holly do to sort of pull you out of the mindset of the pessimistic family setup, the single mother setup, which we all, we can all have a heart for sure, but it will
100.
trap you in life. So how do you start, if someone's in your situation right now, which I would argue is most of America, how do we pull them out of that?
Yeah. First of all, environment. And I just think it's your physical environment, it's your mental environment, and it's your spiritual environment. And so, what we did though was proximity is power.
Mm,
And she said to me, hey, if I'm going to work with you and invest time in you, I need to know like you're going to be matching energy for energy. In the minute
mm,
that I feel like I have to chase you, then I'm no longer going to be doing this. And so I was like, I'm
wow.
like, I mean, I remember literally like running home from the bar when, I was like single. I was like running home and I'm like, I had to get on like a webinar at this time because we were building these teams. And I'm like flying through the door because I'm like, there is no way I am not going to be there. And you know that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Always, yeah.
That's for me, like I took mentorship, with such reverence and
Yeah.
such respect. And even today, like the way you talk about Ed Milet, I feel that way about him in so many ways as well. And like just reverence and just being grateful that someone is sharing and telling you and teaching you a different way. And so I took all that like and really like put it in me, put it on me, and got in that environment. And I cut off a lot of ties, even like limiting exposure to my family. And I mean, I put myself in like my own little training camp
Hmm.
in an incubator for at least 3 years until I could recondition myself.
Yeah, amazing. Well, you have a powerful brand now. When did you really start stepping in the light yourself and really using sort of all these powers and gifts that we see now from the outsiders watching you perform? When did that start transforming into a real brand for you?
Yeah, when I got in sales, I was like, I need like more people to sell to. And there was no Instagram, there was only Facebook. And I realized no one's going to listen to me if I'm just selling. I need to add value. And
Hmm.
so I started to play with that like early on, and I realized, man, I can inspire someone even if they're in real estate and even if they're a stay-at-home mom. And I really got into the whole mindset piece of it. But then it wasn't until I did extremely well in business that they put me on stage in an arena next to Tony Robbins, and I was like, I better show up.
Hmm.
And that was really when a part of my identity changed
Sure.
after I had that 60-minute keynote, and like, oh,
Damn.
okay,
That's big.
people see you differently now, and
Yeah.
you're 25 years old or whatever. And for me, I started to realize like brand is me. It's not the supplements I sell or who I'm dating at the time or who I'm with or who I'm not with, or it's me, it's my essence. And so I really started to look at it as a canvas and have fun with it and just know it's an asset. So if anything ever changes, I'm good.
Sure.
It's like a digital business card. And and I was like, how to win friends and influence people. I just collecting friends and all that stuff. And so I've just leaned into it and had so much fun. And now I really feel compelled to teach others about it because I feel like a lot of people just don't get it.
Sure. Yeah, so this is the business of you now is helping others really achieve sort of their highest and best use, which I would argue is a powerful brand. I think there's more fear sort of trapped up into what it's actually going to take to build a brand. Sort of the whole idea of even stepping in the light is a greater fear than death itself. We're so afraid what people think. We have so many people running so many rackets, and I feel like the light, at least on my end, it was such an accountability holder. If I was going to have the courage to step in the light, I was really going to have to expose myself to the barbarians, and that is a scary thing for a lot of people. Was that, number one, was it hard for you? I mean, how do you resonate with that point? But number two, how would you coach someone through this early stage?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's normal. We all care what people think of us. I
Sure.
think for me, I had a lot more grace on it because I was rejected as a little kid. So for me, rejection, I have a different relationship with it. I honestly believe like sales, putting yourself out there. I'm like, yo, I don't care what you think of me. I know that I love me and I have integrity. So if you don't like it, move on. So that is a mindset that I've had again, and I truly believe from being rejected as a young girl.
Hmm.
And as sad as that sounds, it's just the truth.
Sure.
But when I'm working through this with people, I ask them like, what's their reason? What's their why do you want to show up? What's your compelling future look like? And I get people to tell me what they really want, what moves them, like what do they really, what change do they really want to see? And then I typically flip it and just say, well, then how selfish of you not to show up? Because like you really must not believe what you say to your core if you're not willing to get over yourself.
Hmm.
And we live in this selfie, self-centered nation. And that's really when I challenge people to get the courage to turn the selfie stick around and be a vessel for somebody else, and you'll realize how good that actually feels. And so when I'm talking to people, Eric, oftentimes I find that they're just being very, very, very selfish. And when I frame it like that, they're like, no, I'm not, screw off.
That's so good. Yeah, you're right. So that what a Jedi mind trick that is to get someone to start performing differently in life is to get them to realize like, no, you're not being humble by not contributing. You're actually being selfish.
Yeah.
What a powerful tool. That's really good. So once they find their why, Emily, what's the next thing in sort of helping someone curate a real brand?
Yeah, so I have a different approach to it because there's different philosophies. Some people are like niche down and talk about one thing, and I'm like, no,
I hate
you're
that.
not you're not a one-hit wonder.
Right.
Like you're multifaceted. And so what I do is I actually go through like an hour therapy session with them and I pull everything out of, remember Mr. Potato Head?
Of course. Love mixing
Yeah,
percentages.
so like we pull everything out, like the eyeglasses, the mustache, the earring, like all of it. And I find themes throughout. Okay, whether it's with wellness, the work they do. I also look at who they once were. What have they recovered from? And, Rory Vaden always says you're most powerfully positioned to serve who you once were.
Totally.
So I look at that and find, would you want to talk about this at all? And so after doing all that, I find a uniqueness in all of it where we can curate an overarching theme that's different than anybody else in the marketplace to help someone stand out and create unique IP, which eventually, if they wanted it to be, could be a book, could be a course, could be a keynote, if they want. If not, though, we just go and I help them run their pillars and start expressing themselves. Then I take it and I have a design team and I help them curate a brand and a logo. And this is a new company that I'm launching here in July, like off the ground. It's been in pilot the last 2 months.
Oh wow! So are you gonna help with content, the whole thing, the whole sort of framework of a brand? Everything goes in full stop shop for brand.
Yeah, so I have a whole team, people that are artists, and then people fly in, and then I do basically an interview with them. I do some media coaching. We get like 30 reels.
Awesome.
But I really like design, so I like to curate something that, again, is very artistic. I think we see a lot today of the same, and so I like to pull things out, different colors, different, everyone's different, right? And so you have to take your time with that. So it's more of a boutique experience in that way.
I love it. What a cool service that is. Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, there's again, in the world we're headed, I think this, especially the world of AI, everything's digital. Kids are growing up as little computers in their face constantly. Again, it's one of these things that I see it as a problem, but what are you going to do about it? So you have
Right.
to try to transform these young minds and to know how to use it as a weapon to succeed and to achieve their dreams, as opposed to being a consumer that just is a slave to it. And so I think that your approach is valuable now as ever, in that if all these, again, like I'm just making a case for so many people that are anti-social media, or this idea that where we're headed is not necessarily a good place. I would argue that it's like people like you that are going to keep the world going around. It's a scary world out there with social media. So I think if I was gonna try to help someone, I would I would lean into the technology is my point, and make brand sort of the priority, because without it, you have such a disadvantage in life. Don't you agree?
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
my gosh, I just turned down someone I was gonna hire because I went to her Instagram and I
There you
was
go.
like, yo, you're bouncing on tables here. Like, I'm like,
No, I feel it.
I'm
Yeah.
like, you don't look like your resume. And it's the thing with social, it's your attitude with it. It's your
Yes.
mindset with
Totally.
it. And so when people complain about it, I'm like, you're a consumer, you're not a creator.
Yeah.
That's why you have this mindset. And so it's just like anything in life, like it's a discipline
Totally.
that if you learn to use it for your advantage, you're going to be just fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I think. I mean, some of the why of why I'm doing. I connect it to children and innocence in general, and I don't try to get too political on my platform. But at the end of the day, like sometimes you just can't help it. You just have strong opinions of where things are headed, and indoctrination, and all sort of the things that I think are going to just be bad for society. But at the end of the day, like this is why I'm here. I think this ultimately is why you're here. We work so hard to make the world a better place and to give a better option, so that all these things that are where the devil may be lurking, there's also bright angels that are also there combating it, and that's ultimately, I think, a more powerful sort of storyline to probably what you're actually doing in the marketplace. Besides just helping people win, helping them grow and succeed, I think that you're doing something even more powerful than that. Is you're actually somehow fighting evil along the way. I don't know if you see it that way. But again, in this Only Worlds fan, where little girls are now in their bedroom in a good home, I hear this all the time. I talk to parents all the time. It is so prevalent in a lot of the stories that I hear about how this whole world is just stealing innocence at a rapid pace. And so it's like, well, what is the answer? I think the answer, again, is for good people to step up to the plate and teach them how to win, how to use this to achieve your dreams and to have a full life. What else do you do?
Oh, 100%. You are like, I'm like, my heart is racing. You're making
Sad.
me. And the thing is, and with one of my new keynotes in the book I'm writing right now, Never Be Shaken, I was so tired, Eric, of people just being like, oh yeah, stuff happened when I was young, and just kind of like mulling over it. And the thing is like, if we don't deal with it, if we don't face it head on, it's going to manifest in our body. It's going to repeat itself some way, somehow, in a different form. And so I just feel like my mandate is to go into the marketplace. And this is what I've been doing in a lot of arenas I've been in, is I'm going through like, what happened to you before the age of 18, and
Right.
what haven't you dealt with, and really walking them through what generational transference looks like and how it shows up. And if you don't want to repeat this on your kids or
Yeah.
other kids, or then you do need to learn how to forgive, and you do need to get real help and make it cool to talk about these things, because I felt so much shame for things that I didn't do to myself when I was little. And I spent 30 years recovering from stuff I had no control over. And, I just feel that, again, most people, like, this is just not common. People are just talking about behavioral change. They're not talking about identity change.
That's powerful. Yeah, right. I think identity is everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's long term. Identity is long term, and what's funny is I teach this. Anything you're worth doing, no, not only is it worth doing right, but like think long term till death do us part. Like anything that's worthwhile should be. like health, fitness, mindset, a business, however you do anything. Just if you think that way, it's hard to lose, really. And it's that sort of long-term commitment and consistency that ultimately, paired with like bold action, will lead a person anywhere they want to go in life. And that is everything I just said is identity, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And but it's when things change because we get so fixated on like I'm this person with this company or when people go through a breakup or whatever. And so what happens is when the career shifts, if their identity is solely tied to a thing
Sure.
and not
That's
God,
good.
you have a hard time embracing the change, and people don't know how to navigate because their identity is tied to a place,
I feel it.
to a person. And so that's why I just believe that, people need to search for something so much bigger, which in my world it's God, that he's the one true north, that no matter what you have, no matter what you don't have, no matter what money you have, like he's going to satisfy your soul. It literally says
Beautiful.
that in a good book.
Wow. Do you think that there's an effort to take God out of everything in society? And from my perspective, just my opinion on it is they've taken God out of schools and replaced it with government. There's such a concerted effort, so it's really refreshing to hear like a beautiful voice like yours have the courage to say that, because now it actually takes courage these days to be someone like yourself out there speaking your truth and using God in this way with this sort of like light around you. That's a courageous act these days, which is crazy.
It's crazy, and I will not be shaken,
Good for
and I
you.
will there I don't care, and I share this like when I'm in secular audiences, and obviously I'm super respectful
Sure.
for what people believe, but I'm like,
Feel that.
I'm not going to bow down. I'm not going to dismiss my God, the one that has healed me, the one that has given me the ultimate courage, the one that I base my life off of. And I just feel like there's a call out right now for the real leaders in the world. Like
Yes.
we need real leadership that is filled with integrity, that is filled with honor, because it's like the dark is trying to outshine the light. And
Always.
I just feel like when the truth speaks, like the world shakes, and there's a resonance to truth, and the enemies flee. And I'm gonna go preacher on you right now.
Let's go.
And this is truly what the world needs, is people that are courageous and they're willing to stand up.
Right. It's really powerful. I'm assuming, and I can't wait to sort of tee you up with this, but never be shaken. Can you kind of give us the inspiration for the new book that you're writing, and where are you at in the process of this?
Yeah, like halfway through. Yeah.
Wow.
Have you read a book?
I'm actually a published author, yeah, but I co-authored a book. So yeah, technically yes, but no, I'm in the process of sort of going through this as well. Yeah. I have a ghostwriter, the
Oh
whole
my
thing.
dude, it's a journey, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's about, he is my rock and my fortress. I will not be shaken. It's Psalm 62. It's in the Bible. And what I realized in my life, and especially coaching others, it's like, it's not that I don't have hard times or people lie to me or steal or cheat or all
Yeah.
the human things that
Sure.
happen. It's that I have chosen to be the rock in the river. Like everybody can go around. I will be here. And if you look at the Psalm 62, it talks about, it's when David's going into battle and he talks about, I will not be shaken. Like, even though these guys are coming at me, I will not be shaken. I will be here. I have a fortress. What's a fortress? A fortress of protection. So your environment, I've created an environment of protection, spiritually, mentally, physically, all of it. I mean, I biohack all day long, right? Like all the things. And so this book is really about the reality of generational transference. So things that are in you, on you, subconsciously from the way you were raised, and the journey of how to break them off. So you can never be shaken.
I love the title, and I love sort of the premise of the book. Like, I'll be a rock in a river all day. I love it. It's so good.
You are a rock, literally. You are the rock in the river.
Yeah, technically I am, huh? Well, I'll tell you, you tap into something I love to talk about, and it's this idea of sort of courage, stepping in the light, finding your truth, finding your voice, finding your power. What's crazy in my story is that was my greatest fear. I could win quietly all day behind the scenes. I didn't see a reason to step in the light.
Really?
Yeah, no, I was just so deathly afraid of it. I'm literally, if I turned a camera around, I would freeze up. Like I couldn't even do it. So I've come a long way, and I always am flexing the muscle. I'm getting better and better at it. But even in my own little baby story here, it's a testimony for, number one, how far you can come. But number two, that even in winning itself, there's so many levels to what I perceive as sort of like the ultimate way to win. And for the first time in my life, this is a true story. Most people don't know my real story. They have no concept of how bad it really was for me and where I started. Primarily because I hid it for so many years. I was running a racket, if you want to know the truth. But the thing I'm tapping into that I feel from you is that sort of stepping in the light. It's the thing that actually I think through action has connected me to God. It couldn't be preached on to me. I almost had to go through this experience, and I lost my grandma when I was 35, and she was like the only person in my life that I would say like unconditionally loved me. I felt her unconditional love, and it was a really hard loss for me. And for the first time in my life, death seemed so close to me, and I don't know why it like haunted me. I couldn't shake it. I'd think about it at night. My wife would like look at me like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "I don't know." Like, I'm just thinking about my coffin. Like, it was this reality that's going to come so quick. Like, it's just going to happen quick. She was just here. Now she's gone, and just fucked with my head
Right.
so bad. And the only thing that I could do was start searching. And where it led me was to the light. It led me quite literally to all the scariest things that I've avoided, even my own deep, dark truth that I put in a box. I said I murdered that person a long time ago, and I never thought I brought him up, but somehow all this get brought up, and then the right person, you tapped into it earlier, the right person will occur at the right time when you need him most, and that's where Ed popped up. Kind of unique. All this is kind of unique for me, and this is where he challenged me to do something, and as I started doing it, I actually, again, once you invest in a guy like Ed, that's big money. I mean, that's $250,000 to work with someone like that.
Yeah.
And you're sort of performing with that type of pressure on you. Like, I just started being really bold, and in the boldness of the action itself that was so scary to me is where I finally found real purpose in the action. And I finally felt almost at peace. It was like the softening of the fear of death. And then it was like the opening up of God to me in that experience. And it's where I finally realized, like, oh my God, like this is what peace feels like in your heart, is by service. And I finally found the lane I'm supposed to be in. But the reason I never got there is I was too afraid of it. Who would want to listen to me? I always thought I was disqualified because of where my start was in life, not realizing that was my greatest asset.
Literally your greatest
Isn't that
asset.
wild? Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes sense that the enemy would try to shut you up because you're such a light. Like you are,
Thank you.
like the way you embody strength and vulnerability is like watching heaven in motion. And
Thank
a
you.
lot of men cannot do it. And, when someone like you speaks and speaks truth, like the enemy flees, and no wonder why he had a stronghold on you, and he literally like trying to shut you up and keep you quiet, because
Yeah.
when someone like you unleashes, it's like lives change. And so if you look at it in the spiritual realm, it makes sense to me, but it's such a beautiful encounter that you've had discovering the real you. It was in you all along. It just was hidden.
Yeah. Thank you, Emily. But it's people like you, though. I think you pull this type of stuff out of so many other people. It's all these people that have the courage to step in the light that ultimately become sort of this beacon of hope for so many people. And that's one thing I missed. You mentioned the pessimistic sort of setup in life. You know how many people in America are like, oh, those people are frauds. Like, you get all these sort of naysayers and mudslingers at the Tony Robbins or Ed Milet's, or that's the world I came from, is that, oh, those guys all must be selling snake oil. Like, I didn't realize that how much sort of power was in the message that just the messages they carry, these types of people that I now love and to death are friends of mine. But I was so against that for so long, kind of because of my environment said, oh, that's all weak. That those guys they must be up to something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, they told you beware.
Yeah.
They're gonna make you think positive. Yeah. It's wild. That's why I've just learned, like, let me experience things for myself.
Totally. Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. But that's why I love sort of like, I can speak from both sides of it. And tapping into all these incredible mindsets like yours is really fun because I've always feel like I'm trying to tee up the message for the person that needs to hear it most. And again, I think we have an audience at all different levels, but a lot of people probably are considering what my life in its highest and best use would actually look like. And a lot of people that now I attract, they're right there. They want to do more with their life. They have a bigger vision for their life. They're probably scared. They think their story disqualifies them, sort of all these things you talk about. But one of the things I've been challenging people recently, more especially people that I think have powerful testimony, is just write a keynote of your life. I never even thought of this before till recently.
Good. Yeah.
And so now I'm kind of in this message, and I actually really like it. Even if you have no plan to use it, just start that thinking about how would you serve the world? What would your message be? Like, what is the theme of you that you want someone else to take from your story, even a regular person, right? And I realized what a powerful tool this has become as I sort of have challenged sort of people that are in my community to do this. And again, now I'm getting a lot of questions. So what is your process? You're one of the best speakers in the world. It's kind of a place I wanted to talk on. I admire you. I love the power of you on stage. You're so good. And I'm really nervous about it myself. So selfishly, I want to learn from you. But what is your process when you're thinking about stage presence, performing on stage, delivering a powerful message, how you close, how you land the plane, how you open people up? Maybe if you could walk us through some of your framework or your thoughts just on this idea of public speaking and really the power that you possess.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I always share, like, when I'm talking to people that want to be speakers, I'm like, find every moment you can get an opportunity, whether it's to speak to 3 people, 5 people. And that's really what I did. I gave opportunity business presentations in janitors' closets.
Amazing.
And I was like, how am I going to motivate this chica, And so I started, that was my playground. But when it comes to like keynotes, I'm always going, what's the one thing? What's the one thing I want them to walk away with? Not the 5 things, not the 20 things, but what's the one thing? And it does depend on how long it is. Like, I prefer to have at least 60 minutes.
Totally.
When they only give you 20, it's like, oh my God,
I can't
please.
do 20.
It sucks, but I know, same. But what I do is typically, again, it's like, because I can train on brand, but I can train on transformation. And typically the thing I love to do is transformation. And how I do it, I put it in frameworks, SLS. So story, lesson, strategy. So I'm basically telling a story, what's the lesson behind it, and then what's the strategy they can take home. And so if it's like a 60-minute keynote or even a 30-minute, depending, there might be 3 SLSs in there, but then it's bumpered up by an intro and a conclusion. And once you have that framework, you're like, okay, I need 3 stories. What's 3 lessons? What's 3 strategies from it? And then let's have variety. I really love to communicate with emotion and keeping people on the edge of their seat, because I know that we live in a microwave society. People get distracted, so I want to keep them fully engaged the whole time. And so I'm doing that through a variety of different things, through exercises, through making sure they're on their toes, to provoking a lot of emotion. I want them to feel something after I'm done talking, but also like learning something. So I think a lot of people speak and they go off stage and people are like, what just happened? Like, what am I supposed to like do with all this? Right.
Wow,
And so,
yeah.
so for me, it's like, I'm just the messenger. I'm just out. It's not about Emily. Yes, I may have some stories, some anecdotes in there, but it's not it's for them. And so when I'm communicating, I need to make sure that it's going to change a life out there, and it's not going to be Emily centric. And I think that's the big difference.
That's good.
And it's some people are like, well, duh, but I'm like, yeah, but if you really listen to yourself talk, it's very me, And so that takes maturing in speaking, and really just being conscious about how much you want to impact someone. And so, yeah, that's like the basics. I mean, I could talk about this forever. I love talking
It's a
about
great
speaking.
topic. Well, I think anyone out there that wants to really win should consider this a step that they're probably going to get to in life. If you really want to win at the levels where really like the greatest value of you is exposed to the world, this is a lane for you to be in. And I think deep down, it's hard for me to think that you want to win in life, and this is not going to be some layer that maybe you think you could get to one day, even if you won't admit it. This is that, even if it is that scary place, like it was for me, like, deep down, like even in my own story, like I knew I was going to win in life. I came from hell. I almost ruined my life. I was facing 25 to life in prison. I had a gun pulled on me. Someone thought I was wearing a wire. Like I'd been through all these bizarre sort of set up places that I hid my life from. When I got unleashed from like the mercy of God, if you will, I should have been in prison. But when I got out of that situation in my early 20s, like I sank all that shame, guilt. Once I got healed and sort of like off the drugs, everything became about like sort of like proving to myself that I'm not a piece of shit. Like I just had to go win. I was so ashamed, and it wasn't even my fault that I got in trouble. I got 2 baseball injuries. I watched my dream die. And so that sort of one thing of like putting all that pressure into just winning. But even in then, like somehow I knew deep down, like in my soul, that I wouldn't really win at the highest levels if I wasn't out serving, even though I wouldn't probably have a framework to describe it. But that was that early sort of crude version of that just started winning. And it was sort of sinking all those emotions into, again, I was running from fear, like so afraid of who I used to be that it would push me into scary actions. And I would create these questions where the fear of not doing this or the fear of staleness would push me into scary actions. And that was sort of this odd thing that kept me winning for a decade of winning, running from something, which is not very healthy, likely they'd say. Well, but shit, I accomplished all the rarest things in life in a decade with that odd strategy. Still living a racket though. Not one of my customers knew my truth. So again, it wasn't till the Emilys started showing up in my life, everyone started slapping me in the face. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are letting fear sort of either help their existence or ruin their existence. But it is a really powerful motivator or detriment. It could be used 2 ways. But I guess the point really is like, even back then, if you were really going to be honest with yourself, like, yeah, I knew that I was one day going to have to expose myself. No matter, like I knew, like I was going to have to, like you can't run a racket your whole life, but the light is the ultimate truth teller. Is it not? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
It so is like nothing, anything that's done in the dark, it's eventually going to get exposed. And when I always tell people like secret keeping crushes a soul, and it completely drains your energy. And there's something about just living in complete congruence and truth.
Yeah.
You're like, I got nothing to hide. Yeah, this is who I used to be. Not proud of it, but guess what? I learned, right?
Yeah.
And when you're that free, you just, someone listening get it. You vibe at a higher level, right? You're emitting a different frequency because you're so pure with who you are.
Yep.
Even if you're not proud of all the things in the past, you at least forgive yourself. And when you live in that way, again, there's a different resonance to you, and you're a magnet for people because they just feel comfortable around you because you're so comfortable with yourself, even if you could be completely different than them. And, I just feel with people living in fear, faith and fear cannot coexist simultaneously.
Nope.
And so this is where, for me, it's like leaning in and trusting God with my life. Like, do I really trust him with my life? Or am I trying to just solely rely on myself? I'm not that almighty and powerful. Only God is. And so when I put it on him, and I'm like, yo, you carry the load. I'm gonna co-labor with you. We can jam together, and we're so much more powerful than just me in my own little head. And if you're in your head, you're dead. And so this is where you just need that little moment and that little win. And I always, I love talking about the big momentum. I love momentum in life, in business. I love it. And, once you get that momentum, it's like gas pedal, like keep going. You're about to see how good it can really get, but it's to get to momentum. And how do you get to momentum is by taking one step, one foot in front of the other. And suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, I mean, how does a kid walk? They crawl and then they start walking,
Totally.
and that's how the listener needs to. I mean, I hope they're driving a little faster right now if they're driving, or walking a little faster, because it's like, move,
Yeah.
just move. Like, that's what you need to do. And you're going to go, oh gosh, this was not that hard. Like, I can do it. And then it's like, you just keep going. And then you build a fortress of protection. You build great people around you. You have Eric around you. You have Ed Milet around you. And you start to build this fortress, and like suddenly you're like, boom, you're crushing it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely hear you. Like, everything you speak to does speak to getting in a state of action, which where all the money's at. It's in the action. I think a lot of people think that they have to have it all figured out or have to have it perfect.
Oh my God.
You see that a lot?
Dude, yes. Perfection is disguised as insecurity. When you try to be perfect, you're insecure. It's like it straight up. And so you just gotta launch fast and just know, like, I'm launching a whole new company right now. I have a bunch of people downstairs, people putting stuff together. We're figuring out the launch plan as we go.
Love it.
It's fine. We'll figure it out.
Totally.
And you just gotta let go and let God.
Yep.
And realize that nobody wants perfect anyways.
Sure.
Perfect doesn't exist. It's false. Right. And so that's just an excuse.
Yeah, I think they say perfection is the enemy of execution.
Yeah.
I think perfection creates paralysis because you're never really perfect. You get frozen. There's so much good truth in that. You use another word that I really like. I never really analyzed it till like maybe the last 3 months. I forgot why this word kept popping up, but really trying to understand the power of congruency. And the way I perceive congruency, maybe you can help me curate the fullness of the thought, is almost like a person's spidey senses. They're feeling something about you, and if you're out of congruency with what their eyes are seeing, they may not trust you. How important is congruency to be an effective leader in life, a person that actually has real influence?
It is so important. You may be able to fool some of the people that are not as emotionally intelligent, but eventually it will catch up with you. And when you're congruent, I have to be fully convicted to do something.
I feel this.
So I stepped out of a business venture because I was like, this is false. I cannot fake the funk. You can't even like read my face, it's just, I move with conviction. And when you're convicted by something, you believe in it. There is a centering. You're like, I believe in you. I believe in your message. I'm convicted. I will stand up in front of the room and for you. I will take a bullet for you. I believe in you. I will go to bat for you. You're convicted. And when you feel convicted and you are vouching for someone, there's a resonance to that. There's a level of truth. It literally vibrates at a high level, which is your congruence. So if suddenly, I didn't believe in you, maybe, I don't know, maybe I had some false accusations of you. But then I had to stand in front of a room and like welcome you and introduce you and talk about how wonderful you are, even though like you and I maybe got into it, even though we never have.
Sure.
Like that, the people in the room that have a high enough level of emotional intelligence, if I was BSing the deal, they could feel that I wasn't really for Eric.
That's good.
And a lot of people do that in their life where they're vouching for something, but we can feel that you really don't believe in it and you're incongruent.
Yeah.
It's like off a little bit. And that's again what separates, I think, a lot of people that have true influence versus people who have influence that's maybe more manipulative.
Sure.
It's they try to manipulate their way through things, is because they're not congruent, even with what they preach. So it's all false.
Yeah, right. I feel
You
that.
know?
I've seen people that are incongruent on stage before, and you feel it. You don't know.
Oh my
You may not even be able to describe why you don't trust them or believe them, but it's something you see it. But even someone that doesn't have a great message or great speaker, if they are congruent, maybe they're not that talented, I still have a heart for them, right? And it's because they're
God.
congruent. They may be nervous and shaking, and if what comes out of their mouth sort of aligns with what I feel in their body, then I'll trust them. And again, I may even love what they deliver, even if it wasn't like it wasn't a great performance. But I may actually,
Right.
it'd be maybe more endearing to someone that had a perfect performance, but was out of congruency. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah,
Oh,
authenticity.
100%. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, there's power in this, and I don't know how in depth people go with all this, but I think anything that you pursue, you should pursue. You should kind of be a student to the game. What makes Ed so effective is I've listened to so many Ed Mylett speeches. I've been backstage with him 100 times. I've seen him. I've watched him perform. I can see how he's developed over the last 5 years. I see how many hours he puts into his craft. That's his passion. But you can just see what really goes into the storytelling, the game of it all. But what makes him effective is the power of his congruency. It is so dead in alignment with the power of his message itself. But yeah, if he wasn't who he claims to be, it wouldn't
Right.
work. He wouldn't make all that money. Arguably, the people that make the most money are the most
100%.
congruent. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I call it Pretender Nation.
Yeah, and isn't there a lot, do you think there's a lot of that actually going on because of social media? All these facades that are shit. No one even looks the way they do it anymore. I mean, it's so addicting. Period. Oh, I can be prettier today. Woo! I feel
It's
that. Fuck.
you go to an event and you're like, wait, who are you? Like, it's
Yeah.
it's. I mean, I get catfished, and I'm a girl, like so.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah,
Damn.
it's. But I think the time is a truth teller, and I think. You look at someone like Ed again, he's been in it long enough. Like, it doesn't mean he hasn't screwed up, same as Tony. They'll tell you they screwed
Of
up time
course.
and time again. They're human, but they have stood the test of time. And I think, again, time exposes people,
Yeah.
and either it's a green light or a red light. And I also think the closer and the more you work on your faith, you can really learn this thing called deception, and it's almost like your antennas go up, like you're like, okay, this is not right, and you just know that much quicker what is fake and what is real. I call it counterfeit as
Mm,
well. But I still give people grace. People are
sure.
trying. But I've coached people before as well. I'm like, you don't have to pretend. Like, you're good enough as you are. You don't have to pretend. You're already good enough. You're already perfect. Like, you
Yeah.
do not have to pretend. And it just comes from insecurity
I
most
was
of
going
the
to
time.
ask, is that insecurity? Is that
Yeah.
how it shows up? Okay. One of the things I'm working on is there's a part of a keynote that I'm working on, which is going to be the first place I ever tell my full story ever. I've never done it before. I always spoke on stage as I explored the boundaries of this fear. I always didn't tell this one important part, which was everything. So I kind of make the case that I've been running a racket. And so it'll be a really powerful keynote, putting a lot of pressure on this one to sort of be like, this is my Power of One More talk, right? And
Oh my
so
gosh, I cannot wait. I want to hear it.
I know I want you to be there. Thank you, Emily. I appreciate you. This is like, I'm nervous to do it, but I'm going to do it. Like, I'm at this stage in my life. I'm like bearing my soul to the barbarians, and I'm happy to do it. But so I'm in the process, right? And I'm on this sort of this thought, just as I'm doing almost like a TED talk. I'm putting some research, fact. I'm just studying the topic of running a racket. And there's rackets that'll put you in jail. There's rackets that you could kill you. You'll be very dangerous rackets. But then there's a lot of rackets that I've sort of uncovered in the process that are super subtle And the more I sort of research the topic, I almost think almost all of humanity is running some kind of racket. It's like this idea of a candy store in the front, but behind the scenes, it's a liquor store going on. You know what I mean?
Oh my, it's like the BTS, and everyone wants to see the BTS.
I know.
They don't want to see the front window. Like the front window might pull me in, but I
So
really
good.
do want to see what's going on in the back. That is so good.
There's a lot though that they're subtle enough, and when I describe them, I realize because I've explored this with friends or people in my community, and you can almost see people kind of pausing and like looking around. They're like, "Shit, I do that," and it's like, oh, it's more common than you realize. But I've listed
Oh yeah.
some. I just want to see your thoughts on these. So I'll just go down my list of what I made. I think
Yeah.
most of them should be self-explanatory what they are, but exaggerating achievements is one that's obviously pretty common. Embellishing your accomplishments is something that so many people do. Name dropping, I find everywhere I go, someone's name dropping, including myself. But at the end of the day, it's like, intentions I think are really important, but so many people do it to try to seem like they're more important than they really are. And I think so the intention with that might be really important because relationships are everything. But that was another one. The social media facades, that was one we just talked about. Agreeing with everyone, overcommitting, faking interest. This one was good. I like this one. Humble bragging. So that's making self-deprecating comments that are actually intended to highlight your achievements or your good qualities. That one was really telling. And now that I'm more aware of this, I can see people kind of do it. And it is kind of, makes you being really self-reflective of yourself. Like, oh, I can't believe they're going to have me do that keynote. I don't know what they saw in me. Like they
Oh
must see
God.
something in me. I don't even see it. Like, it's like a little bit cringy now, right?
Yeah.
Pretending to be busy, false modesty, overdressing or underdressing. That was actually a racket. Playing dumb, avoiding directness. And that's like using vague language or evasiveness to avoid confrontation or admitting their true feelings or intentions. Giving unsolicited advice, being the class clown. That's using humor excessively to mask insecurities or to gain social approval.
Yeah.
And then feigning indifference. It was one thing to list these off is what I found. It was a whole nother thing when I gave the one line definition of what that meant. It's one thing to hear it, like I said, but I'd say the definition, that's where I could feel someone chewing on, oh my God, I do that. I do that. I do that. I do that. And what I realize is these people, we create illusions all around ourselves that give us that slight advantage of what we think will make someone else like us more. I'd argue you're slightly depositing incongruent deposits in the incongruent deposit box, which is just not good.
Wow, this is profound
Isn't that
and
cool?
so true. And it's freeing. Like
It is
when
freeing.
you just call it like it is,
Yeah.
it's honestly so freeing because
Yeah.
it's like I just envisioned like taking a mask off,
It's peace.
And you're just like it's
It's
peace. You're
peace.
like you don't have
You're
to
at peace. No one
like
gives a fuck. Yeah.
you're already good enough
Yeah.
and it's like though these things that we do to overcompensate they actually harm us because at the end of the day people just want truth and they want humility
Yeah. Or who you
and
really are. Just who you are.
yeah
That's it. If that's what you are,
yeah
that's what you are. Like some people love fashion, then love it. You're okay. You're not covering for anything. If that gets you up in the morning, makes you tick. But then some people will
totally
love fashion to try to be the person that they think will be liked if they love fashion too. Like that's where the racket starts. The racket doesn't necessarily start because your interests are that. And again, I wouldn't
so
misguide that as like because you like this or that. But if you're a Rolex guy and you love the magic of the timepiece, like I'm in the jewelry business. I have jewelry stores everywhere.
yeah
Like I don't mind the brands. I love the game of it all. But again, like if I'm doing it to make someone like me, that's where I need to really be
yes
self-aware.
oh my gosh this is so good and I always have explained and I remember trying to like explain myself. I'm like, I would put myself together even if I sat in the corner by myself
That's you.
today because it literally makes myself feel good. I would still,
Nothing wrong
even
with
if
that.
I'm sporty, I'll be sporty spice and I'll put it all together, and I'm like, because it makes me feel
I
good
love it.
and I shouldn't have to like explain
No.
myself of why I look good, why my fingernails are painted, why I'm clean. Like,
No. And it goes back to that's authenticity that creates real congruency and you shouldn't have to explain yourself. The problem is
right.
when you think you do. I mean, it's all what it all comes down to, I think, Emily, is this idea of being very, very self-aware and being able to be self-reflective in individual moments. And a lot of that comes with a negative thought. I think this is the deep thought I put on this. It'll come into as a negative thought, or it'll come in as an emotion that's not serving us. And if you can just turn it around for a minute and say, is this true? Is this real? And then either put it aside because it's not real, it's a lie. When most negative thoughts are lies, or this emotion. I'm feeling this right now. I'm feeling overwhelmed, stressed, pressure, feeling some kind of feeling, jealous, envious, whatever the emotion is that's making me feel a way that's a little icky. Just being able to analyze it before you create a knee-jerk reaction is a game changer for how you create outcomes in your life or actions around the emotions that don't serve. And I think this is where humanity gets it wrong. They act on emotions that are lies, and they don't put any self-reflective thought in it before they make decisions. That is the power of what personal development has taught me is I'm going to step in the light. I better be the damn thing I say that I am. And that's forced me to be self-reflective because I put so much pressure on the accountability of me. And that has been a game changer for a type of personality that is already hungry, has desire, that wants to win, that's ambitious. This is what all these sort of final touches in that kind of have polished off my congruency. And ultimately, I would argue all this is what's led me to God feeling like, dude, my life actually matters. And I'm so much more at peace with death and who I've become as a man. I'm very proud of myself. Crazy, right?
You should. This is massive, like where you have come in the journey
Yeah.
that you've been on, and it's so beautiful. It's
Yeah.
like
Thank you.
it is truly so beautiful, and I'm so proud of you. It is like you're such an example for men and women.
Yeah, you are too, Emily. The one thing you said it earlier I thought was interesting is like, I'm trying to think how you worded it, but because of your family dynamic and how your mom start with the single mother, the tumultuous household, you don't know how you ended up sort of just always being on the right track. You know, you were a great athlete. You're always like, you know, I really admire that in people that somehow they didn't have to slip into a drug depressed like state. Like it's almost rarer to be you than it is to have someone that falls completely off. Doesn't mean you didn't go through hard times or this, but my wife was similar. Her mom was 15 when she had her. She grew up essentially on an Indian reservation her whole life, where like a dream of my wife's when she was a little girl was to have a matching bedroom set where the pillows matched the bedding. She never had that in her whole life. And so she had these really simple dreams. And one time her dad was white, and she had a white grandpa that told her that all Indians are drunk, lazy Indians, something like that. And she was a little girl when she heard this, and it really bothered her soul. And so her whole life, she fought to be clean, crispy. She was a workhorse as a little kid, and that's her personality. She's such a dialed-in human, my wife. But it was because of those little things from her childhood. And so even though all the odds were set up against her, she is one of the most incredible humans I've ever met. And just like you, and the kind of the perception of what I'm getting is, she never did. She was always such an angel her whole life. She didn't mean she didn't have hard times or the emotions that we steer with, but she didn't fall off like me. And again, the statistics would say that she should have, like coming from the single parent home and 15 as a mother. But
I mean, wow. Yeah, she was being guided. Someone was, I feel like, a little guardian angel or something.
Yeah. At the end of the day, though, so like there's so many different personality types in the world. There's so many places we go wrong. But the thing that's universal, no matter who you are or where you are, is we are always worried about what other people think. We're always sort of, whether we realize it or not, that is always such an important sort of connection in the human experience. And it's the self-reflective mastery, I would argue, that makes you so special, is you're very self-aware. You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. High levels of emotional intelligence, and self-awareness is everything, because it's like you face your own BS every day, like you know, and that self-awareness and like constant reflecting and spending time in quiet, like truly, if I think of, you know, even like Jesus retreated from people, like he would go do his work, he would go help the prostitute at the well, all the people, and then he would like go retreat, and he wept. It literally said Jesus wept, period. And that's a part of being self-aware. It's feeling emotions, it's healing, it's facing the demons, and being okay with it, you know. And you know, the world needs more self-aware people.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just feel like people numb themselves out. So it takes discipline to be self-aware as well.
Yeah. I had one last question. I know we're coming up on a hard stop, and you have an event coming up today. But you talked about a few times now, you dropped the word forgiveness in and gratefulness. And I think these are two maybe great places to end. But how important is forgiveness sort of in the journey to self-mastery? And then alongside that, as a system, can you explain how you use gratefulness to sort of always put you in an advantaged position in life?
Yeah, so good. Well, it took me a lot longer to learn forgiveness. For gratefulness, I was like, okay, like when I started being an entrepreneur and I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor, my mentor's like, dude, why do you think God's going to give you an actual like bed frame if you're not grateful for your mattress? Like some people don't even have mattresses. Some people don't even have options. Some people don't even have, and so it really switched my mindset and looking at like gratefulness being such a high frequency of emotion. If you're living in that state of gratitude, wow, you're just going to be so much more enjoyable to be around,
Yeah.
and you're going to be an attraction magnet. So the grateful part of it, every day I think of 3 things I'm grateful for. And sometimes they're people, and I'll randomly text them, send them voice messages, and just practice exercising that grateful muscle. And it just immediately puts me in such a good state. The forgiveness part, I
Genius.
had to learn in the last like 7 years because I held so much anger and bitterness and resentment
Sure.
towards my dad. And actually, Tony Robbins and I like duked it out in front of 20,000 people. And
Wow.
so I spoke at the MGM, and then I went and sat in the front row, and then he spoke and did his 3-hour thing. And I never raised my hand, and he came and called on me, and he was like, stand up, you. And I was like, what? Like, I just trained all these people. What do you know what I mean? I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, what's an area in your life that you have royally screwed up on? And the words like came out, and I couldn't think, like they came out of me. And I said, my relationship with my dad.
Wow.
And we went into a whole like 45-minute session in front of all my peers. And what ended up happening is I realized that I was carrying so much anger that it was actually making me a lot more masculine.
Wow.
And I went and called my dad, even though like we don't have a relationship, and that's fine. But I changed expectation for appreciation.
So good.
And I've learned that when we don't forgive people, it's like an invisible umbilical cord that keeps us connected to that person. And so I started to practice forgiveness, even to like business partners that it went south or whatever, and it doesn't mean like we're hanging out, but it just means that we're cool. I wish you well. And what it does for you, because hatred has an oppression attached to it. And so I really, truly try to live my life in love and just not have any animosity or hate towards anyone. And it's just made me such a healthier human being. And it's also like, if any women are listening, if you're more of a power chick, it makes you a lot more feminine because you're not holding on to all that anger.
So good. That was like one of the best things I've ever heard. That was so good. Like, this is what it's all about right here. Like, it's hard to get to some of these places in a podcast, but you just got there. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You're such a gift.
Thank you. This has been so fun. I cannot wait to get to know you more and listen to you speak. And like all the things, like we're just getting started in this life. We're the next generation.
I know we are. Let's do this. I'm very, very inspired by you, Emily. You are such a gift to humanity. So thank you for being a role model to me. Thank you for coming on our show. I can't wait to see you soon. Next time you have an event, I'd love to come support you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Where can we send people if they want to love on you, invest in you, connect with you, support you?
It's Emily on Instagram or meetemilyford.com.
Meetemilyford.com. Emily, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
I'm a man on a mission.